Good afternoon. We will go ahead and call the August 26th Transportation Policy Committee to order. All right, we will go ahead and call roll, please.
Who do we have, if anybody, from Bullitt County? Judge Summers, Keith Griffey, Felicia Harper. City of Charlestown. City of J-Town.
Here, Matt Meunier.
Matt. City of Jeffersonville. City of New Albany. Mayor Deere, thanks for joining us, Mayor, from J-Town. City of New Albany. City of Shively, Mayor Chester Burton or Jeff Early. City of St. Matthews. Clark County. Floyd County. NDOT.
Kathy McAllop's present.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Going back up to the top, I think I see Felicia Harper. Are you there, Felicia?
I am here.
I see you. Thanks for joining us. NDOT Seymour. Jefferson League of Cities.
Byron Chapman here.
Join us. KYTC.
Hi, Sadie Middleton from KYTC.
Sadie.
Tracy Lovell, KYTC.
Tracy, I see Tom as well. Thank you guys for joining us. Who do we have from Louisville Metro? I think I saw a couple folks. Dirk and Mike?
Hi, King here.
Yes?
Dirk Goins here.
Dirk? How about from the Louisville Regional Airport Authority? Or Oldham County? Jim Urban?
Jim Urban's here.
Jim? Town of Clarksville? Kevin Mady? From Tarc?
Carrie Butler and Aida Kopik are here in the room.
They're in the room if y'all can't see them. They're waving. So say hi. Thank you all for joining us today. On to our advisory members. Do we have any advisory members present from FHWA, Federal Highway, either Indiana, Kentucky, FAA, FTA?
Hi, Erica Tate from Federal Highway Indiana is here.
Hey, Erica. KYTC District 5, we already heard from Mr. Hall and Mr. Lovell. Metro Planning and Design Services. And then anybody from HUD? I don't believe we do, so we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. I want to welcome everybody once again to the meeting. We will move right into the agenda. First of all is approval of the May 2021 TPC meeting minutes. Need a motion and a second, please.
Motion approved.
All right. I believe it was Mayor Deere and Mayor Chapman.
Yes, that's correct. Second.
Okay. I'll call the motion. If you vote aye, you can either raise your hand or say aye, and then I'll do the same for anybody opposed. So all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Public comment period. Do we have anybody who wishes to comment?
Yeah, we did not receive any comments prior to the meeting, and there are nothing in the chat right now. There are no members of the public.
All right. Continuing to move on then. Item number 4, public involvement period. Greg.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to fill you in on the last 2 months. It's been a while since we met, obviously, so I want to fill you in a little bit on what we've been doing in the outreach and screen here for you. So numbers are a little bigger, obviously, this month because we're looking at the numbers from May, June, and July. We look at website visits. We also look at our social media. But take a look at our Website visits, the big thing is, monthly averages, they are actually climbing up, so, from April, so that's a good sign that shows that people are, getting the message out, it's working, that's the biggest thing, so we're happy to see that. Also on the social media side, that's the same type of thing. If you look at the standalone numbers from each month, they are all higher than what we saw in April when it comes to impressions and engagement, across the board, especially on Instagram. We've been, transportation itself has been a little bit more active on Instagram, and so we're seeing those results. Impressions on Twitter are great. For the 3 months, Brian, it was over 17,000. On Facebook, we had over 5,000 impressions. Engagement-wise, which is just people either clicking on links, seeing it in their feed, numbers are good, holding steady at almost 300. As well as on Twitter, we're over 500. Four new pin drops added. As you all know, we do have that public application map, which allows you to go in and pinpoint exact concerns. We had 4 new drops added. We had 1 comment added as well, and I will address that here in just a few minutes. But also public outreach events that we've been going to, mostly have been over Zoom, but we did have 1 in person at the Oldham County Chamber of Commerce. Mostly on just MTP updates. We presented to One West leadership, Kentuckians for Better Transportation staff. We also presented to Rubbertown Community Advisory Council and presented to the Louisville Professional Networking Group. Most of those groups were groups that we met with back in the spring when we did our first update to the NTP. We basically just wanted to provide those results and just present to them a presentation and what we saw, what we heard. We also got, as I said, we did get a couple of public comments earlier for the I-65 study. A citizen was just emailing us back and forth. Really hoping for more ramp removals that were included. I'm not going to read the entire comment, but it is there, and it is also included in the agenda packet. So if you want to go through and read that, be more welcome. We also, as I mentioned, we did get 1 comment on the pin drop tool. That one involved Broadway and the West End. Just basically stated that Broadway is a vital connection into the West End. There is no exit off of the Shawnee Expressway, and an exit is needed here. If there are no other questions, that pretty much concludes my report, but I'll take any if anybody's got any.
Any questions for Greg? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5. That's a quarterly review of MPO dedicated programs. Nick Fail.
Yes, can you all hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Good deal.
Okay.
All right, let me pull up my presentation real quick. There we go. All right. Thank you all for having me. As you guys know, this is a quarterly item that I bring to you guys to kind of give an update on how things are going with our MPO dedicated programs. This quarter, or this past quarter, I should say, Kentucky sponsors were not required to submit progress reports. We revised those rules last year, or TPC did, I should say. In Indiana and NDOT still requires quarterly project review meetings as well as progress reports. So those are ongoing. So we did have our Indiana project review meeting, and it was a pretty important one. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my last slide. But just kind of jumping into things here. The Indiana project sponsors did an incredible job this past year. Indiana's fiscal year, NDOT's fiscal year, they run from July to June. So May was really the last time to obligate any funds for projects that were going on or programmed in fiscal year 21. As you can see here, in all 4 of the programs, we left no dollars unobligated, meaning every dollar was used that was allocated to us by NDOT. So definitely congratulations to all the project sponsors. They work incredibly hard to get all of that going and keep projects moving. We are already obviously into fiscal year 2022. And while I didn't include a status slide there, I can tell you that at least 2 project phases have been obligated. And those are kind of the traditional ones, KIPTA's Every Commute Counts program, as well as the CARE money for APCD. Moving on to Kentucky, we still have a month left in the fiscal year. And these numbers are, I would say, up to date in terms of about late July. So I haven't received any obligation information from in the last month. So I know a lot has probably occurred and will occur in the next 30 days moving forward. So I will bring this back to you guys the next quarter to show kind of how things wrapped up in fiscal year 21. The Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, obviously, that's one where we have a large carryover balance. We normally receive about $21 million in allocations per year. You can see we had about 3 years worth of allocations programmed at the beginning of the fiscal year. And there was about $4 million obligated in this past quarter, bringing the total up to 6.7. In the big picture, we really want to get hopefully above 21 million in obligations. That will help us avoid adding to our carryover balance and hopefully cutting that down. Some of the more recent obligations were Bullitt County's preliminary engineering. Those funds were obligated to start work on Kentucky 44 over in Mount Washington over to the Spencer County line. And then Metro's one-way to two-way street conversion project, the construction funds for that to occur, a large portion of those were obligated. And then APCD's CARE program, which was a new STBG project that TPC awarded in 2020. Moving on to the Transportation Alternatives Program, there was about 2.3 million program. We received annually about 1.1, so that's about 2 years worth of funding represented there. We did have $300,000 obligated, and after talking with some other sponsors, it sounds like sooner than later there'll be several other obligations that will hopefully get us over that 1.1, 1.3 target that we're shooting for to try to avoid adding to our carryover balance. And 2 of the more recent obligations were to start preliminary engineering on sidewalks for Newburgh Road and Blanton Lane that Louisville Metro is working on. So again, we still got a lot, some time left, and I think these numbers will definitely go up. How far up they go is anybody's guess, but I know our sponsors and KYTC folks over at D5 are working as hard as they can to move projects forward. Moving on to kind of the action here. As I mentioned, we had a project review meeting with our Indiana sponsors, and then we had a follow-up meeting regarding this funding swap. I've probably said this a million times, but in Indiana, we cannot carry over funds from one year to another. So when we talk about things like phase shifts, it doesn't really exist because there's got to be a partner that's willing to swap funds. So the situation that kind of arose here is that Floyd County is working on replacing Bridge 51 that spans the Silver Creek, I believe, and crosses, it touches Floyd County, Clark County, Clarksville, and New Albany. So there's a lot of regional players involved, and it's a very important project, obviously. There were some difficulties with the environmental document, which led to a delay with the right-of-way phase. Right-of-way is going to start in 2022, but they're going to need probably about 18 to 24 months to acquire all of that right-of-way. So they threw out the idea of whether maybe somebody was willing to swap funding because they need to move their construction phase from 2023 to 2024. There's a $3.5 million price tag on the construction, very high number, and we don't want to risk losing that funding if they couldn't obligate in fiscal year 23. Luckily enough, Clark County and Clarksville both had projects with construction phases in 2024 that could be moved up into 2023. So what you see here is Clark County, they've got a intersection improvements, likely a roundabout at County Road 403 and Stacy Road. They're going to be moving they're proposing to move their utilities 1 year up from 23 to 22 and moving the construction from 24 to 23. Likewise, Clarksville has a kind of a redevelopment project on Riverside Drive, a reconstruction project, I should say. And they are also willing to move their construction phase from 24 to 23. The final piece of this is that in moving the utilities phase for Clark County's project from 23 to 22, we didn't quite have we didn't have the funding at the time to be able to satisfy the need, which is $108,000 federal. So this is kind of it's a cost increase, but it's not really a cost increase. It was always $108,000. This is more of a formality because we don't have rules that kind of prescribe to this type of funding swap. So my ultimate request is for TPC to approve technically the cost increase, as well as the 3 funding swaps, which will allow all 3 projects to move forward and ensure we don't put ourselves at risk of losing any funds. I can take any questions or comments at this time.
Any questions for Nick?
Motion to approve, Bill Dara.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second, Jim Urban.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? This is to approve the cost increase and the phase shift. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That item is approved.
Thank you all.
All right, next item is connecting areas of persistent poverty to job growth, education, and healthcare grant application. Stacy.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Just to provide a little background, the Federal Transit Administration has issued a call for applications for their Connecting Areas of Persistent Poverty grant. Those applications are due on August 30th, and Tarc plans to submit their applications, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, Friday, August 27th. Tarc staff and KIPTA staff met earlier this month to discuss this opportunity and the potential roles for both the MPO as well as the rideshare program. In short, the program provides funding opportunities for engineering, planning, technical studies, and financial plans to improve transit in areas experiencing long-term financial distress. The outcome intended is to provide more options or improved options in those areas to connect them with jobs, education, and medical facilities. Unfortunately, our area does have areas that qualify. The census, basically any area that's eligible is a census tract with a poverty rate of at least 20%, as measured by the American Community Survey Series. And there are such tracts in Clarksville, Jeffersonville, New Albany, and Clark and Floyd counties in Indiana, as well as Bullitt and Jefferson counties in Kentucky. Tarc is seeking a letter of support from the MPO for their application. And in meeting with them, we did also review their proposal against the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and do find their proposal to be consistent with the goals and objectives set forth therein, specifically to increase Tarc ridership, to increase the number of community clusters served by transit, as well as to increase specifically transit access to high density employment, education, and medical clusters. And just before I turn everything over to Carrie Butler with Tarc, please do recall that action is requested to provide a letter of support. And if any of our partnering agencies are interested in also providing a letter, I know the turnaround time is really short. You can contact me or you can contact Aida. Both of us would be happy to provide a template letter for you, and electronically is fine by no later than the close of business tomorrow. Carrie, over to you.
Thank you. I don't have much to add. I'm happy to take any questions, and we very much would appreciate the support of the TPC and any partner agencies. We have found that these types of planning studies, I mean, this is this is a competitive program, so we don't know that we will get the money, but that these types of planning studies are very instrumental in helping us with the challenges that we know we have in not being able to provide the most amount or the high level of service that we know we need to. So the planning studies are helpful, and that can help us, you know, prioritize resources and give us really analytics and data in order to best allocate the resources that we do have. So we think this is a really important topic. This is certainly something that's near and dear to our heart at Tarc, and just will appreciate the support if you are willing to do so. Thank you.
I would make a motion to send a support letter out. I had somebody reach out to me, a group, to say that this is needed. It's interesting that it's coming up for a letter, so I would highly recommend that we send this letter to get the funding for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Do I have a second?
I'll second Power Chapter.
Mayor? Any further questions? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I don't know if I should abstain or not. I mean, obviously I'm supportive of it, but I would abstain if that was the proper procedure.
For the record, we'll just let it show that you are abstaining.
Even though I'm supportive, obviously.
Very.
And completely
Very.
All right, that item is approved.
Thank you.
Moving on, item number 7 on your agenda, the KYTC Shift 2022 process.
Thank you.
Andy, sorry.
Yep, thank you very much. Back in April, I presented to this committee, you may recall, about the sponsorship phase of the KYTC Shift 2022. KYTC Shift 2022 is the most recent iteration of the data-driven quantitative process that the Transportation Cabinet has established several years ago that helps them prioritize projects for their highway plan. And so this update will help prioritize projects for the highway plan that we should expect to be recommended by the KYTC and the governor late this year, and then reviewed by the legislature early next year, 2022. So here's some of the key dates. This is the original format, original schedule. So TPC chose the projects to sponsor. We sponsored 49 projects. Transportation Cabinet sponsored many more across the District 5 area. Over the summer, projects have been verified and scored. And now we are in the boosting phase. Recently, there's been some changes to the schedule to allow us a little bit more time for boosts, okay? So we thought that this meeting today would be the big meeting where we'd be reviewing these projects, but unfortunately it's not. We're gonna move it back to September, okay? So just to let you know, the projects were scored by KYTC over the summer. That didn't change. They just got them out maybe a little bit later than they expected to. And so those projects have been boosted by KYTC District 5. That happened last week on August 16th. The KIPTA RTC, Regional Transportation Council, by the way, boosted their projects. Those are the projects in the rural KIPTA ad counties. That occurred on Monday at their meeting, Regional Transportation Council meeting. And now the ball is purely in our court. And by our court, that's going to look, what that's probably going to look like here is going to be a TTCC working group that was established or mentioned at the meeting earlier this month, where a group of presumably Kentucky TTCC members would get together here at the normal meeting time of TTCC next month to go over the nitty-gritty of some of these projects if we need to, but with the end goal in mind to get to that list of projects that's going to be boosted by this body, or recommended to this TPC body, I should say, at your all's meeting on September 23rd. Again, after that process, the projects will be boosted and they will be fed. They will be selected downstream from our feedback into the highway plan that'll happen later this year. So a little bit more on sponsorship. You may recall 49 sponsorships for KIP to MPO, 67 for the Transportation Cabinet. Just a reminder, I left this on here just to remind you guys that some projects were not eligible. Those projects that were committed, as defined by KYTC for sponsorship, more on that in a minute. Run-of-the-mill maintenance projects were not a part of this, and neither were, very importantly, the dedicated funded projects. So those projects that get that STBG funds, STBG MPO funds, or SLO funds, what have you, those were not eligible for this process either. Again, that was sponsorship. Now we've moved on to boosting. So for those that don't recall a couple years ago, what's a boost? So a boost is where the scores that come out of that KYTC black box, if you will, they've got a scoring system that prioritizes safety, congestion, benefit cost, economic development, probably a couple other factors. I think there's about 6 factors in total. So the score comes out of that process, and then after that's done, Transportation Cabinet at the highway district level, and then also the MPOs and the ads across the state, they get a chance to boost the project based on local priorities, based on you know, qualitative parts of the project that didn't show up in the quantitative scoring in the end. So what that means is you get to add 15 points to some number of projects. In our case, we have 21 projects to boost. So 21 projects will get 15 additional points from this body to add to the scores. Put on there, you can't split them up. We can't split boost and say 5 here, 5 here, and 5 here. That doesn't count as one boost because you can't split them up. 15 projects applied to 21, 15 points applied to 21 projects. Put on here, only regional projects are eligible. What that means is over the summer, the Transportation Cabinet separated the projects into what they call statewide projects, projects of statewide significance, if you will, and regional projects. So the statewide projects have been excluded and are not eligible for boosting. The scoring's a little bit different. They're, as far as I understand it, they're done. They're done. Their scores are settled. Those projects are those that are on interstates. So most interstates, virtually all interstate projects are not going to be boosted next month. Boosting projects that are going to be on arterials by and large. Here's the numbers. By the numbers, again, we get 21 boosts. Transportation Cabinet got 13. District 5 got 13, I should say. KIP Area Development District, RTC, got 10 for what it's worth. And so, again, the Transportation Cabinet D5 did their boosting last week. And so the ball's in our court over the next month or so. So this is the last slide I have, and just some food for thought for next month, and this will be what the TTCC will be deliberating over, the working group. Got about 90 projects, okay? So that first cut, that sponsorship cut that we did back in the spring, that was not a very deep cut. This one is. Got about 90 projects to choose from. Again, it's all those projects that were sponsored, minus the statewide projects, plus the committed projects. They come back into the fold, so that they'll all be available. So what, in the end, we can only boost about a quarter of them. Okay, we've got 21, and there's about 90 to choose from. We will be boosting after KYTC, okay, and that allows us to what they've called turbo boost projects. Turbo boost is where this body would choose to boost the project that KYTC chose to boost last week, and so that project doesn't get 15 points added to the score; it gets 30 points added to the score. So that's big time in terms of what the project's final score is as those projects get compared regionally and statewide. Some things that I'm sure we will consider that I think staff would recommend considering is project status, meaning we need to keep projects going that are in the pipeline. No reason not to do that as far as we're concerned. I think hopefully everybody would agree. Project shift score. There's some projects that are probably not worth boosting because we can't boost their score high enough to be competitive. So that's probably something that we should consider. Some of the things we also would certainly consider, this body would certainly hopefully consider, is the Connecting Kentuckiana 2040 score or ranking. That is, how did the project score given the MPO scoring system? Our scoring metrics are different than the states. Our scoring metrics prioritize different things than the states. That much is very clear. So, you know, ours are probably more urban focused bike ped projects get a heck of a lot more credit in our process than they do better or worse in the KYTC process. And also local priorities. Which projects are the priorities of the counties and the city in Jefferson, Bullitt, and Oldham County in this case. That's all I have. There's no action. That was kind of a preview for next month, so food for thought. So next month, we will be back and we will be approving or seeking your approval for 21 projects for the boost process. That's all I have.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions that Andy might answer? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 8, KIPTA Performance Management Plan, Transportation Safety Targets. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you very much. Slides up in a minute. This is one of a series that you've heard from me or other staff over the years in relation to our performance management plan here at KIPTA. We didn't have one 5 years ago, and now you probably heard me or somebody else talk about it 2 or 3 times a year as we update it and get a full version of one. Today, I'm here to talk about transit safety targets. Okay, so that is brand new to our performance management plan that you see on your screen now. That performance management plan includes many of the things you've heard me or somebody else talk about: safety performance measures, asset condition, pavement and bridge condition, congestion-related performance measures. Those are those PM1s, PM2s, and PM3s. Those are FHWA required, let's call them, performance measures. We've got our own KIPTA developed performance measures that were developed, probably pretty close to a decade ago, and we're some of the very first ones to do so. We've got Tarc asset management performance measures that we added probably about a year ago, a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken. So now, brand new to our performance management plan are Tarc safety targets. The Tarc safety targets, they came from a new Tarc document that's called the Tarc Agency Safety Plan. Tarc Agency Safety Plan is Tarc's version of the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, PTASP, that is required through both MAP 21 and now the FAST Act. So Tarc receives funds through that, significant funds through that, and so they're required to do the safety plans such as this. And in there, they've been required to develop safety targets, prescribed safety targets on prescribed measures, and those are required to be included in, or they're required to coordinate with states and NPOs like us. And so here we are. We're here to discuss them and hopefully to approve them here today. And here are those targets. Again, these are prescribed. It's not as if Tarc or KIPTA gets to choose them, choose what the headers are. We've got to have a fatality target, for example. And so these targets that Tarc has developed, they've relied on, Carrie or Aida, correct me if I'm wrong here, they've relied on the NTD database, that's redundant, National Transit Database, looking back a period of about 5 years to say to establish a baseline condition more or less. And these are the targets looking forward. These are annual targets established by Tarc, and I failed to mention, excuse me, NPOs have the option to set targets, I suppose, however an NPO would like to do so. And in regions where there are more than one transit provider, it might make sense to mesh them somehow. But we have taken the stance that we would like to recommend that we adopt Tarc's safety targets as this region's safety targets, as the main primary sole transit provider of significance in our region. So again, there's targets. There's 14 of them in total. There are some for fixed routes and some for their paratransit operations. You'll see on here something called VRM. VRM is vehicle revenue miles. So how many miles does a bus go with somebody on it, a passenger on it, more or less? And so that's in the neighborhood of double-digit millions per year. So 15 million a year, perhaps. And so that was the denominator on those rates. So we have the number and a rate for fatalities, for injuries, for something called safety events, and that last one is system reliability. Those are the number of miles between major mechanical breakdowns.
Failures.
Failures. failures. And so again, these 7 targets, 14, if you will, targets, fixed route and paratransit, are prescribed through the through the rules. And so that's all I have on this. We are going to incorporate them, or do we plan to incorporate them in our performance management plans? I think I mentioned earlier. Carrie or Ada, do you have anything else you want to add?
Happy to take any questions, but you did an excellent job. Thank you.
All right. We are seeking motions for the approval of these, inclusion in the PMP.
Okay. Action is required on this item. Do I have a motion in a second?
I'll make the first motion.
Second, Byron Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That item is approved. Anything else on that one, Andy?
No, no, sir.
All right. Continuing on in the agenda, item number 9, Connecting Kentuckiana 2050, update goals and objectives working group. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to the committee today. Staff is continuing to advance the update to the Metropolitan Transportation Plan that is currently in place. That is Connecting Kentuckiana 2040. We are working on that update, and it's called Connecting Kentuckiana 2050. Part of this effort is going to include a review of the current goals that we have under our current Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and see if we want to revise or update those goals for the Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 update. I guess what we would like to have are some participation from the Transportation Policy Committee and the working group as staff works through these goals. We need your assistance in making sure that the goals reflect what the TPC believes is important as we identify and advance transportation in the region. So, Mr. Chair, what I'm asking for today is a small working group to gather so that we can begin taking apart the goals that we have right now and seeing if there are ways that we can make them better. I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I'm unable to hear the chair.
Sorry, we are on mute.
Oh, sorry, we were on mute here. My understanding is you're looking for 6 or 7 volunteers to meet over the months of September and October for 2 or 3 meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right. I'll give 25, 30 seconds here for people if they want to volunteer now. Otherwise, they can get a hold of David. If we don't get those 6 or 7 volunteers, and I guess as chair, I can enact a draft. So is there anybody who would be interested in assisting David on this item?
Carrie Butler, I'd be glad to.
We would like to get good regional coverage if possible, and have someone at least from each of the 5 counties in Tarc to participate in this process. If no one wants to volunteer today, Mr. Chair, I can reach out to them in the next couple of days and go from there.
That's fine, David. We will look to see if we can poke and prod some volunteers, and if not, then I'll get a heavy hand and enact the draft. So again, if you're interested in assisting, it's just 2 or 3 meetings over the next 2 months. It just needs 6 or 7 people. So if you're interested, please get a hold of David.
Likely to be virtual, very likely to be virtual meeting, so the time commitment shouldn't be good.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 10, Transit Authority of River City, also known as Tarc, going to provide us an update on comprehensive operational analysis and your long-range plan. So, Carrie, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. I am going to sort of jointly present with Aida Kopik, who you may know from the TTCC meetings and other planning efforts for Tarc. So I will sort of pitch to you first and then fill in as needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate the opportunity to provide updates on a couple of projects that are funded through KIPTA programs, INDOT, and State Highway, Kentucky State Highway Department. We think major projects that will have impact in the community. However, due to the COVID impact and number of reasons that hit our economy, employment, and mobility industry in the past year and a half, some of those projects have been delayed, and at the moment they are actually all moving forward for implementation. So I am pleased to report on that. On this slide, you can see our wonderful mission statement, success factor, and goals for Tarc to improve the mobility and enhance our community. That is our goal, and all these projects that I will talk about align with the goal and mission. You heard, I believe, right before the COVID started, summer of 2019, so to say, a couple of projects that are funded for new service and amenities implementation. This is the project to improve connectivity across the new bridge and the East End Bridge and provide access to jobs from West Louisville and from Northeast area of the Jefferson County, primarily to River Ridge Commerce Centers and Amazon as a major growing employment area in the region. So we all know that transportation between home and jobs is one of the major reasons that people cannot keep the jobs. It's a major barrier for the employers to retain and get employees to many remote areas of our community. So Indiana Department of Transportation CMAQ grant is funding 2 new routes, basically to connect West Louisville, where we have a high density of population, low income and minorities as well, with faster and more efficient connections to River Ridge. And obviously we have some concentration of low income and minorities in the northeastern Jefferson County, where the new service would be provided across the new bridge, and again, enhance access to jobs. We are at the moment in the planning phase of this service with expected implementation either early or mid next year. The funding again is provided in fiscal year 2019. Grant was $2.4 million from INDOT plus $300,000 a local match from Tarc. And the funding transfer to Federal Transit Administration is completed, so we are ready to hit the ground running. Part of the reason the project was not implemented earlier is obviously resources, but also significant impact of COVID on the employment and moving projects forwards and changes in commute patterns, number of reasons. So now with the economy coming back and the COVID hopefully exiting, we hope, this is an opportunity to enhance access to jobs, and that's what we are doing with this plan. The level of service on both of those routes will be basically AM and PM peak service, 3 round trips in the morning and 3 round trips in the evening. We are trying to tailor the service and timing with a number of shifts in River Ridge, and obviously we are already serving Amazon, so that will enhance employment opportunities for West Louisville, Northeast Louisville, and obviously Jeffersonville. We are planning stops there as well. Similar concept is improving connectivity along outer loop and providing connections to jobs in Renaissance Development Park and Commerce Crossing Center south on Preston Highway. The project implementation again is expected in 2022. We are in the planning process. The funding is reimbursable fund provided by Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. The total amount over 3 years is $1.1 million, with again Tarc providing $300,000 or more as needed for service delivery. Level of service, again, similar. Part of this new service will replace one of the Tarc express routes eliminated a year ago due to low ridership and extremely high cost per boarding. So we are trying to mitigate for lost service and provide additional connections on Preston Highway along Outer Loop with morning and evening service, again, tailored to shifts, and with transfer opportunities between Tarc major routes number 4, number 6, and 28 along Preston Highway. We have one of the fairly large projects in City of Jeffersonville that is funded by Transportation Alternative Program funds. This project is a collaborative effort between City of Jeffersonville and Tarc. And we did have some hiccups with the contracting and design for this project. However, everything has been resolved, and City of Jeffersonville and Tarc are now making final steps to take this project to the construction phase. We are providing 3,000 plus feet of new sidewalks, improvements to bus stop, shelters, benches, and boarding areas along Spring Street corridor, which is one of the major corridors in City of Jeffersonville, providing connectivity and access to residents and businesses in the area. So the estimated completion is a kind of aggressive timeline by the end of this year. The contracting will be through Tarc, and we are basically planning to find a contractor to implement this project in a relatively short time. Design is ready, the cost of the project is updated, and we certainly are prepared to deliver that in the next couple of months. Park Place Mall is also one of the projects funded by Transportation Alternative Programs. This project was obviously tied into Bus Rapid Transit Corridor implementation and improving access and information for transit users, for bicyclists and pedestrians in Park Place Mall. The project is funded by TAP, and if you move to the next slide, we can see how the current look of this bus stop is. This is one of the major stations, BRT stations along Dixie Corridor, with this transit node that will be funded with approximately $150,000 combined funds from TAP and Tarc. We'll certainly provide additional information, maybe bike lockers, informational kiosks to make this small transit node more visible in the community and serve transit users even better. This is a project that I just would like to mention for success and triggered a lot of attention when we started working on it, is implementing Tarc solar shelters. Many of our riders told us multiple times that there is no lighting at the shelters and more lighting is needed. Providing lighting on the streets and in the community and transit amenities is a somewhat complex for a couple of reasons, but this was success to provide 5 solar shelters across the service area with approximately $100,000 capital investment in 5 different locations. We acquired all those shelters. This is the one on 28th Street and Dumenil. 2 have been installed, with 3 more solar shelters to be installed by the end of this year. And that is all I have today in terms of the project update. Would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Carrie and Aida. Any questions? Always nice to hear about the expansions in public transit, and I would ask that if I could have 5 minutes of your time afterwards. We have a project that I'd like to discuss with you across the river in Clarksville. So.
Of course. Yeah, we're grateful for the support that we've gotten from the Transportation Alternatives Program and the CMAQ program both. Tarc was in an interesting position that we had a lot of these projects underway, our comprehensive operations analysis, these projects, our long-range plan, and then so many things that we all experienced got put on hold. So very excited that these are now, these are a longer timeline than we like to have, but we're ready for these to go underway. And then the other thing that I might ask is at an appropriate, interval here in the next couple months, that we could come back with some more information and the plans for our long-range plan as well, which is another funded project. But we just had talking about the project management plan for that project this week. So if we can reserve a space on the agenda to talk about that, does tee in nicely to the other long-range plan, the 2050 plan as well. So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You name the date?
All right. I mean, obviously, we can talk about transit. We could just start calling this the Transit Policy Committee, and we'd be cool with that.
Thank you, ladies. All right, moving on. No action was needed on that item, so moving on to item 11, fiscal year 20 through 25 Transportation Improvement Program. Nick, you're back up.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. This is just the normal administrative modifications to our fiscal year 2020 to 2025 TIP. Several of these projects, these first few, Clark County, Clarksville, and some others are related to the funding swap that you all just approved a few items ago. There's a handful of NDOT projects that are kind of mostly bridge deck replacements and maintenance type projects that qualify as group projects, so we can add them through an admin mod. But I think there's also one more project at the end. Oldham County Spring Hill Trace Sidewalk. They did not need the money that they had programmed for utilities phase, so they are moving that to construction. That's one of our MPO dedicated projects, and I think they're still hoping to get to construction this year. We'll see how that goes. Again, there's no action. These are just minor changes to the Transportation Improvement Program. I can take any comments or questions you may have.
Any questions on these items for Nick? All right, hearing none. Moving quickly towards the end of the meeting, item number 12, any other business, Andy?
Yeah, a couple things real quick. Miss Sadie Middleton, this is going to be her last meeting with us on TPC and at KIPTIS. She's, for those that don't know, Sadie is our KYTC MPO liaison. I'm sure she's got a different title than that, but in essence, she's the coordinator that coordinates MPO activities here at KIPTA with KYTC. So we want to wish Sadie the best and thank her for her assistance over the last couple of years, and we'll miss her.
Thank you. I really enjoyed working with you all, and that is my correct title. You got that right.
All right, good. Well, best wishes going forward, Sadie, and we'll, like I said, we'll miss you around here.
Thank you.
One other thing, KYTC related, they had a request. They requested a letter of support on a fast track for a grant that they are pursuing for ATC MTD. And what that means is Advanced Transportation and Congestion Management Technologies Deployment. That's another way of saying ITS project, Intelligent Transportation System project by and large. And so we put together a letter of support for them this week. The project they're pursuing is statewide, and as I understand it, it's a project to eliminate or mitigate or both wrong way crashes on freeways. So a project to help stop that. And I think in particular, there was I-264 in the West End was talked about, and a couple other places might be pursued here locally within our region. So I just want to, that's all I have.
All right. Any other business to come before the group today? Now, our next regularly scheduled meeting will be in September.
It'll be September, fourth Thursday. It's going to be September 23rd. And again, that's going to be heavy shift related. We'll talk about shift, but it should be, as far as we know at this point, plan on a hybrid meeting approach. You're more than welcome to join us here at KIPTA, and we thank those that are attending here today. We want to thank Mr. Mark Lord from Congressman Guthrie's office. He joined us. He's in the back of the room. I don't know if you all can see him on the camera, but Mr. Mark Lord's in the room. So I want to thank him for attending. So we will plan to do it this way next time. So you're welcome to join us however you see fit.
All right, if nothing else to come before the group, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
Or make that motion.
Have a motion from Carrie. A second, please.
Second, please.
Thank you, Mayor Chapman. We will call the meeting adjourned at 1:26. Thank you, everyone.